Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Today on Heidi Creates, I am going to take you through the process of how I did this sea turtle tapestry quilt sampler art piece that goes on the wall, and it's all done in fabric and paint. It's not really a how-to so much as just showing you the process, although you can and will learn a lot about different paints and how you can paint fabric and then also quilt it. I do have one video that got lost, and that's with the metallic paints, and I'm going to put a link to those paints down below in the description, and that way you can check them out if you'd like. At some point while you're watching the video, if you click on the thumbs up and also subscribe, and then on that little bell, if you click that, then you'll get notifications of when my next video comes out. So yeah, stick around, watch the video, and I hope you enjoy. This is my original design of the sea turtle, and my original drawing was actually done on this paper. Before I painted it, I actually traced it first, and then I took this image that I traced and took it to like Office Depot, and I blew it up to like 200% just to give you an idea how much bigger. Here's the original drawing size, and now I have this 200% larger. I don't have a light box here on the boat, so I'm going to use our large sliding glass door as my light box. I'm going to tape this image to the door and then tape the fabric over the top of it and trace that image. So I have the paper taped to the door and the fabric is taped over it, and you can see this is going to work really well. The door curves, that's why the fabric isn't laying up against here, because it's falling towards me. I will have to obviously hold that down with my hand. So what I'm going to use to trace is actually, this is a Dritz fabric pen. It disappears when you iron it. Use it right on the fabric and paint right over, and it'll disappear once I iron the piece, when it's all done. I do have the outline all drawn out. It's kind of hard to see against the window, but you can see that faint green. I chose a green color just because I'm going to be painting it with some teals and blues and purples, and that'll match just in case something decides not to lift off. But I did trace this once. I didn't like the positioning on the fabric, so I took it off, ironed it. The image did go away, and I moved my fabric and moved it up into the upper right hand corner just a little bit more. So got it done. Now I just got to take it down, put it together as a quilt sandwich, and start painting. So what I'm going to use first to start adding color to my piece here is I'm actually going to use these Derwent Intense blocks, and they are ink blocks. And look at that case, just happens to have an adorable sea turtle on the front of it. Right now I'm just coloring in straight with the ink block right onto the fabric. Later on, when I've added enough colors that I like, or at some point I'm going to water activate this, and then it will give it a more watercolor look. It's kind of like coloring in a coloring book. One thing about it, when you go to water activate, you can bleed out on the fabric. So I tend to work from the inside of where I'm painting or activating it with the water, so that I get the least amount of bleed. Anyway, I'll just continue this with this color for a little while. Actually, and you can probably see here, you can actually just take a wet paintbrush and just dab it on the tops of these, and take the color from onto your paintbrush over onto your fabric and paint too. You can also mix colors here in these little tray wells. Probably will later on, when I'm working in some of the more finer detail areas, I will be using the paintbrush versus coloring in with the block. So I'm just going to continue this for a while, and we'll come back later and show you what I've done. Okay, I've gotten the colors to where I think I want them, and I'm going to go ahead and start activating. And this is something I can do more than once. I can actually layer lots and lots of colors and then activate it, blend it, do whatever I need to do as far as all that's concerned, and then I can actually work on it more while it's wet. I can add more color while it's wet, or I can let it dry and add more color. I have my water here and a paintbrush. I got it on a plate here with a paper towel underneath. I can blot, and I just got a little brush and I turn it like that. You can see it's fairly frayed on the ends, but I kind of scrub and blend with this and just go for it. I'm going to work more towards the center and be very controlled about how much water I'm using so that I'm not getting a lot of bleed. I don't want the bleed happening here. But you can see the colors are just very beautiful, very intense. And of course you don't have to make it that intense. I personally want this piece to be very intense with color. You can see I'm working from the middle of a particular area, a certain block area, and working my way out towards the edge. And you don't want to work too fast because you can work faster than the water can bleed. And I'm using just a little bit of water, and I can kind of see how far it's moving out. Now see, I got a lot of, I had too much water in there. I don't know if you saw the water, but it pooled out. It bled straight out, so I gotta be really, really careful. So I'm really liking the blend that I have and the intensity of the colors. There you can see one block has been activated by the water. Now you could also, I'll show you here how you can, here let's take maybe a blue color, and I can add more blue in there while it's wet. And then I can also, because I want this to be aqua more, so I can take some green and add that to it as well. And then blend that a little bit more. Now because I ended with the green, that's going to be a little bit more on the dominant side than the blue. So if I come back and I want a little bit more blue, I can add more blue to it and blend that out. So I'm going to go ahead and start on this one. Again, just working slowly from the center out. I'm just going to go ahead and continue on this way, and we'll come back later. I've activated all the ink now on the turtle. Turtle is pretty much done as far as the painting part. I'm pretty pleased with that. On the rest of this piece, go ahead and draw out the rest of my design. So I have the turtle over here on this right side, upper right hand corner, and part of my design now is I've got some seagrass that I've added here, and just adding more colors. The more colors you do, it's just more depth you have. I started out with a green, and then I went with more of a, what would you call it? A more sage green on top of that. Kind of accentuated some of the shadowing. Then I took some blue and accentuated the shadows even more. And then now I'm doing some yellow. If you just do one solid, if you just went just green, then it would just be flat. It would not have any dimension to it, and it would be boring. So lots of color, and I mean, look at the turtle. He's got. I'll go ahead and draw some more stuff in there and do some more coloring in. So the turtle has been painted. The paints have been activated and it's dried. And now you can see I'm doing this wash around the turtle, and I'm saturating the fabric pretty well. And then what I do is I come in and I get some fairly diluted color, and then I just put it down and let it bleed out. Now if you look at the turtle, you can see this dark line. It's right here. That dark line is from the saturation of water coming in from there over into the turtle. Now, as long as I have activated the ink on the turtle and allowed it to dry, this wash should not cause the turtle inks to bleed back into my wash. And it's looking like I did a pretty good job of activating those because it's not bleeding. I might have a little bit of bleed right here at the end of his nose, just a tiny little bit. But so that's why it's important to activate. If you want to do a wash, it's really good to activate your color, allow it to dry, and then come back and do a wash. And okay, I'm going to continue on. So this is what I have so far with the painting. Yeah, the aquas in here are not coming through very well in the video. The video looks even more desaturated than what it really is. A lot of saturation down here, a lot like the turtle has. My next plan here is to just kind of figure out my stitching that I'm going to be doing on this with my sewing machine. I'm going to do some free motion quilting on here. It'll be a matter of just planning out my design for that, and then maybe more painting that will happen. So we'll come back after that part's done. I have the free motion quilting all done on this piece. You can see I did black line outlining on the turtle. Did a variegated thread for the watermarks that are horizontal, and pretty much black thread everywhere else. I have some coral, and those I'm going to be painting with a metallic type of paint. So I'll do that next. So something I need to do before I do the binding is I actually need to set these paints that I painted on the last step, and this is the metallic Lumiere paints. So I'm going to have my iron at the hottest setting, and this has been drying for well over 48 hours, so it's safe just to go right over it. And ironing it also just intensifies those colors a little more. A little bit towards the bottom here. So I went to Joann Fabrics and I actually found this gorgeous batik fabric, which I think really matches that turtle so amazingly well. I'm going to cut this into 2.5-inch strips. I'll join them together to make a continuous binding, and I will show how I do that. I got 2.5-inch strips here, and I just have them laying perpendicular to one another. I do have the ends extending past the strips a little bit just because those are the salvaged edges, and I don't want to put that into the binding. So that I'm sewing from this corner down to this corner down. And you can draw a line if you want. I just eyeball it. Just look at it and eyeball it and aim for the other side. Now, if you want to, if you remember which side is your right side, instead of breaking my thread, I will take the end of the top piece and turn that with my right side up, and right sides together if you have right sides, again overlapping. Lay it this way and just continue sewing without breaking the thread. But that's, since I'm doing this one-handed, I'm just gonna put one little stitch in there and then I like to keep my needle in the down position. So I'm going to continue doing this, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, and if you've done this correctly, they're all kind of linked together, and I'll just go ahead and snip those apart. Okay, here are the connections of the binding. There's the diagonal sewing, the seam, and I trimmed those down to about 1/4 inch, and then you can see when you open, it makes a continual piece. And I'm going to go ahead and press all those seams to one side of the seam. This is not bias tape. This is just binding. I did not cut this fabric on the bias, I cut it on the grain from selvage end to selvage end, just because I'm not going around any curves. For the length of the binding strip, I'm just folding it in half lengthwise and pressing that into a really nice crisp edge. From the front side, I've stitched the binding on all the way around, and I did do mitered corners. On the back side, I did attach that sleeve as I sewed the binding on. It'll get hand sewn down. Next, I will just be showing you the completed project. Well, there she is, all finished and hanging on the wall. That's it, all done. Get up close. Hope you enjoyed seeing the process.